you have to protect yourself and your business. It's not business as usual. It's not like doing a perm gig or even a contract type assignment. It's more of a process. You got to think operationally. You have to think, I need to get paid for the work that I put in, not just for the end result.
Welcome back to Talent Hunters, powered by MRI Network, where each week we talk with the world's top talent strategists and executive recruiters. If you want to build talented teams that drive your company to big goals and big growth, then this podcast is for you. And now, let's join the conversation with today's episode of Talent Hunters.
I'm with Al Lerberg of Cybersecurity Recruiters in Elk River, Minnesota. By the way, I spent 7 years in Grand Forks, North Dakota.
I lived there as well.
It's not, pardon the expression, the opposite of heaven, but if you stand up on the freeway, you can see it. Grand Forks was really cold. The day I left, it was 101 below with the wind chill.
Oof. But, I lived there for 3 years as well. So,
great part of the country.
So and very
welcome,
cold,
Al. Yes. Really proud to have you here. To start with, Al, can you tell us a little bit about your background and really what led you to finding cybersecurity recruiters?
Wow. How long do you have? So I think I'll start. I was in the military first. Then I joined a company called McLeod USA, which was an interesting company itself. It was the first CLEC, which was a company that joined data and voice together back when you had to pay for long distance. So I really enjoyed my work at McLeod USA, but that came to an end, and I went to a company actually that came to an end because they filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy because they were putting fiber optic in the ground at that time, way back then. And anyway, they had invested so much into the fiber optic build out that they actually drove themselves into bankruptcy. So anyway, looking for a new opportunity, I landed with a company called Arias Medical in Omaha, Nebraska. And that was where I cut my teeth into the staffing and recruiting industry. We did contract staffing placements for X-ray technicians, MRI technicians, nuclear medicine, anybody that used contractors within a hospital, basically, and really enjoyed that experience. Did that for several years, but then my wife graduated from Creighton University. We wanted to move back closer to family, and so we ended up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Did a short stint with another company before realizing that my heart was really in this, and this is what I wanted to do. So then went to training in Cleveland, like many of us have, and then started my firm in 2009, which was I think it was 4 days after my son was born. So that was different, leaving my wife, and God bless her, with a newborn baby to go to Cleveland for training. And really at that time, I didn't know what my niche would be. I didn't know what to go into. I had been in the pharmaceutical industry as well, thought that was probably a good place to make some placements. Tried to do that for probably about 6 months. After leveraging, as we all do when we start a business, leveraging my house, my 401k, and several other things as collateral for my loan, and not being able to pay that off and getting very, very nervous, I had to find a niche that I felt was growing and that had a need, right? And so I did my research, and I didn't know a lot about cybersecurity at the time. Started making phone calls into professionals that were in the space, both that were actually doing the work and directors and managers, anybody I could talk to about cybersecurity to try to understand it, because I saw that there was going to be a need in that space. They said it was a burgeoning and growing industry. This is, remember, 2009 at the time. I think a lot of people didn't even know how to spell cybersecurity. So got started basically making a few placements in the government space. Actually, the people that we were placing had very high level security clearances. So if you're familiar with that space, it's TSSCI full scope poly. So these people had a full scope polygraph that they had to take to do their job. in the U.S. government. Typically, these are 3-letter intelligence agencies that we're making placements with companies that supported those intelligence agencies. And we did that right up until 2012. We'd started to get into the private sector a little bit at that time. Hadn't fully gone into the private sector yet. But when 2012 sequestration budget cuts hit, we went from 60 open positions to 0, literally overnight, and pivoted the business into the private sector. Now, the funny thing is like many careers, it came full circle because the government actually came back to us and asked us to be a prime contractor on a government contract. We completed that contract. That was about 2 years ago, and we've been in the private sector ever since. So we really have 3 lines of business. So it's the perm marketplace, the contract marketplace, and the government marketplace. So that's my life in a nutshell for the last, since 2009 anyway.
Boy, the Reader's Digest version was awesome. It really was. The romance of cybersecurity, I mean, it is such a buzzword today. I can just see where it attracts people to your business. So
sure.
Tell us a little bit. I read somewhere, and I don't know where I read it, but you were awarded a $12 million contract. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, that's the government contract that I had referenced. So you have to understand a little bit about how government does their contract to understand what a $12 million contract award is. Just because they award you a $12 million contract doesn't necessarily mean it's a $12 million contract. However, with that said, that is the total value that's allocated towards the contract award should we utilize all that. Now, if I'm Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, or one of those companies, I'd get very creative in how I would increase that. Being a small office, we did not have that experience nor creativity to be able to grow, 12 million into 200 million or whatever they do. So anyway, bottom line, yes, we were awarded a government prime contract, sole source, fixed firm price, which means that they're only going to go out to one vendor for the contract because they feel like we could do it. And then we had some unique expertise to complete that contract and nobody else did. And then fixed firm price, which means that it gets to the $12 million that we had talked to because that's what they feel like procurement felt like that we needed to complete the project. So to do that, we had to partner with our parent company at the time, which was CDI. And so we did that. They were our big brother subcontractor, and we were the prime on the contract. So yeah, at the end of the day, it was a unbelievable experience. Really enjoyed learning. It's a whole new process, right? It's a whole new language. It's a whole new process. You have to go through the procurement part of it before you're actually awarded anything. And then you actually have to perform on the contract, of course, as well. So there's a lot of moving parts in that. You have to have multiple contracts. Not only do you have a contract with your client, the federal government, but then you have a contract with your subcontracting companies as well. So like I said, there's a lot of moving parts involved there. And of course, being the big brother sub, they had a lot of things that they wanted in place contractually to make sure it made sense for them. But at the end of the day, I learned a lot working with them. They brought a ton of expertise and a ton of talent to the program. So anyway, it was a really great experience, and it's something that we would absolutely jump on again if we had the chance.
If somebody was to approach another office with a government contract, what's probably the most impactful piece of advice you would give to that office before signing the contract?
Read everything. Honestly, I mean that. There is a lot of things that the government does not understand about our business and how we do things, and why we do things the way we do them. And contractually, a lot of those things were or needed to be spelled out before we could start performing on the contract itself. And I hate to say it, but you have to protect yourself and your business. It's not business as usual. It's not like doing a perm gig or even a contract type assignment. It's more of a process. It's you got to think operationally. You have to think I need to get paid for the work that I put in, not just for the end result. So there's milestones and what we called gates, payment gates, that if we hit the milestone, we got paid through the gate. If we hit the next gate, the next milestone, we got paid. And you have to build your program that way, because if you just build it where you get paid at the end, because of who you're working with and the speed at which they work, there's a good chance that you could put in a lot of time, a lot of work, a lot of effort, and not reap any reward. They're not they don't think the same way we do. So I'll leave it at that. But at the end of the day, it's really important that you protect yourself throughout that process of procurement and through working through the contract.
So with the business that you do today, away from the government and so forth, do you do contingency? Do you do just contract? How do you conduct your business?
So we have, I would say up until this year, we would do about a 50-50 split, Vince. This year it's been different. It's been a lot more contract. I think that's a nature of the market right now. Before this, we had a lot of perm job orders, and we were more than happy to fill those. And we had some great clients. Those clients this year have had to do some layoffs, and so those perm jobs have not come in like they have in previous years. So like any business, you go where there is business, and that has been in the contract realm at this point.
So you started in 2009, and at my age, the memory tends to lack in places. 2009, we were just coming out of the banking crisis, I believe. And so that's when you started your business.
Yeah.
And clearly you struggled a little bit at the beginning.
Yep.
Why did you keep going in this when at that time you were struggling, trying to figure out your dig and stuff?
Well, I'm chuckling because I have a monitor that is somewhere around here that it's in storage. There's still a scar on it where I took off my headset, similar to what I'm wearing now, and threw it at the monitor because I was so frustrated with not making any progress, not doing anything to help anyone. So at that time, you're right. I mean, 2009, we were coming out of a recession, and it could be very similar to what we're dealing with in the next couple of years as well. These things are always cyclical, as you know, Vince. But anyway, at that time, you're right. We were coming out of the banking crisis. The dot-com bubble wasn't at that same time. I think if the dot-com stuff was inflated. But anyway, we were coming out of that, and I really did the market research and had to decide where was the opportunity. And once I figured that out and started to reach out to those companies that were in the defense space, there was a need. And I knew that I could find people. I just had to find where there was a need. So once I figured that out, the rest, I don't want to say it came easy, but it came easier. When you call someone, and I'll still remember this, and I'll use his name. I won't use his last name, but I'll use his first name. When I called Randy, we'll say Randy was with X company. When I called Randy and he said, I will take as many of those people that you could find as possible, I knew I was onto something. And I started making placements with Randy at X company, and they just came one right after another. So when you find that need, and the communication Randy and I had was phenomenal. He introduced me to several other people within his organization that needed people as well. And when that happened, it wasn't very long. It was 6 months. It was about 6 months after I had opened my office. I'd pivoted to that and figured that out. And once that change took place, then this job became fun. I mean, you still run into all the problems and issues that anybody runs into this business. There's delay in decisions, and then you're working with certain decision makers, and then they didn't have ultimate authority, so you had to work with another decision maker. So I didn't have any. I mean, I certainly had all the same issues that Vince, you've gone through, and everybody else that's in this space as a recruiter has gone through. But at the end of the day, when you find a client like that, that says, hey, we'll take everybody you got that has this certain skill set, I'll find the skill set. I'll make calls all day long to find that skill set for you. And that's what we did.
Chasing the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. I love it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the people were interesting. I think that was a big part of it too, Vince, is it wasn't, the people that we were recruiting were unique in that they had this very high level security clearance. But along with that security clearance comes a lot of stories about how they got the clearance, how they lost the clearance, what they did to lose the clearance. so it was really interesting work at the same time, right? So I think I had kind of, and then by the way, the geography was very narrow, which is something that I've been thinking about a lot lately that we have to get back to. It was a very, very small niche with a very, very specific geography, and I think that made my job so much easier. And it's something I've gotten away from, chasing this and chasing that. And, oh, we need someone in Seattle. Yeah, we can do that. Oh, we need someone in New York. Okay, we can do that. I really liked working within a very specific geography. I think that's in a specific industry. I think that's a secret to success that maybe we've even gotten away from, and that we need to get back to.
I would worry, if it was me, I would worry about trying to narrow when you just got done saying that you felt we might be going into another recession.
Right, but remember we were in a recession at that time as well. So, and this is again something I have to think about more, Vince, is maybe it was just unique to that industry, right? Maybe it was just that specific niche. But, there's another gentleman, I can't remember his name, Vince. You might even remember him. He was with the MRI network. He was very, very, very specific in the niche. Remember, he was the medical science liaison recruiter, MSL, and I don't remember his name, but I remember he was extremely successful, and he worked just within that tiny niche of medical science liaison people. I remember he spoke at a couple of MRI events on stage. And I remember at that time, he's onto something. He's in a very specific and narrow niche, but he owns it. Everybody knows him as the MSL recruiter.
If I'm not mistaken, I think he was out of Louisiana.
I think you're right. Yes.
Can't think of his name, but yeah. He knew every single player. He knew every single company. Nothing happened that he wasn't aware of.
Correct. Exactly.
That's a good plan. Al, hey, follow through with that.
If you go to a conference,
he was a superhero.
If you go to a conference, imagine people coming up to you saying, "Hey, the MSL guy," and you are known as that guy. I mean, man, I think there's a lot of power in that. Yeah,
good call. I'm still romanced by cybersecurity recruiter. I mean, that to me is attraction all by itself. Easy to find, and if you Google.
It's interesting, Vince. When in 2009, yes, I was actually the top search result for probably a good, maybe even 10 years. Now, obviously, with cybersecurity being the headlines almost daily for that entire time, there are a lot more recruiters in this space than there ever used to be. And of course, then your Google Analytics, you get pushed a little further down the list, although we're still on the front page. There's power in that, but there's something else interesting that's happened within cybersecurity, and that is it's grown immensely. And what I mean by that is, it used to be maybe 5 or 6 people within a cybersecurity organization. Now it can be hundreds within an organization. And because of that, you can branch off into, and this is the advice I give anybody that asks me about getting into this space. You can go off into specific areas of cybersecurity now and be very successful in those certain areas. So let's say you just wanted to focus on pen testers, or architects, or chief information security officers, or incident response. Any of those areas, GRC, another complete spinoff, law, another spinoff. There is a lot of different areas that you could go into. And in fact, like I said, I recommend that to people getting into this space now. Specialize in a certain area so that people get to know you as the expert of that specialized space. So it's another thing that we've been talking about lately is, do we want to specialize or do we want to stay as broad as we have been? And I guess we just haven't decided if we're going into a specific niche area of cybersecurity, what that will be.
Huh. Boy, forward thinking. I love it. Let's shift gears just a little bit here. You have a little bit of a Oh, fascination with extreme sports. You're a skier, you're a hockey player, and you still have all your teeth. You like flying. How does that influence your drive in the business?
Well, just to set the record straight, I'm a really, really bad hockey player. I just learned to skate when my son started skating, and that was 10 years ago. And learning how to skate in your 40s is a very interesting experience. Hockey's different than any other sport, and I'll tell you why. Hockey's two sports in one. First, you got to learn how to skate, then you got to learn how to play hockey. That is really the challenge. And so anyway, and then flying, it's something I did with my dad, and something I did when I was much, much younger. So I was kind of like anybody that goes hunting with their dad. I went flying with my dad. So I grew up with that. And I was also in the Air National Guard, so I was around it all the time. And then, I don't know, I think you listed skiing as well. We didn't get out skiing last year. My son's now getting a little bit older in his hockey program. And when they get into Bantams, Vince, your time, it's a 70-game season. So, I mean, it's literally, it'll be 2-3 nights a week. So trying to get out and go skiing, and then obviously if we got injured, that would be bad. So yeah, my life revolves around hockey now, and my son and my daughter, she's going to college this year. So that's going to keep us extremely busy as well. So I don't know how much I guess it's a long way of me saying, I don't know how much extreme sports I'm going to be doing in the near future now that I'm 51 years old as well. The father time has taken its toll on the body. But with that said, I think what that suggests is that I'm somewhat of a risk taker, but I don't think anybody that knows me would call me an extreme risk taker. I would say that I enjoy taking calculated risks. I think that's part of how I do business as well. Like the government contract, for example. Just to give you a quick story about that. I mean, they called us. I think I had six. I at least had six. There's probably seven people that were here in the conference room, including people from the Pentagon, a colonel, and a couple other people that were in the procurement space, and they all wanted to know how I did recruiting in cybersecurity. And I just walked them through our process. I walked them through the MRI process, to be honest with you, and they were like, "This is exactly what we want." But that was definitely a risk, right? I mean, along with that came, by the way, if you don't do this contract, you'll be disbarred from doing business with the government for the rest of your life, right? And so there was definitely a risk there. There was a risk bringing on a sub that I knew nothing about, had never worked with before, even though they were our parent company. If you'll remember at the time, Vince, CDI really didn't have much to do with what we did on a daily basis. So it was getting to know and to run a completely new team, working with completely new people. I worked with Darren Simons at CDI. He was fantastic, throughout the process. And his team, Melissa Barncoat, I think it was Barncoat, close to that anyway. She was great as well. I just had some great people that CDI brought to the table. But anyway, that just all gets back to taking calculated risks. It's part of the business, and I think that's part of my background and part of what I enjoy about doing what I do now.
So to just take a second away from business, I was asked to ask you about the guitar behind you. What about the guitar behind you?
Yeah, well, I don't think the guitar itself has any story other than I started playing guitar probably 6 or 7 years ago. I picked up playing guitar. It's hard. I tell you what, what's great about playing the guitar though? There are so many life lessons to learn from playing the guitar. And I love to relate to the chagrin of my son. I love to relate, hey son, I have to practice this chord 1,000 times before my hand remembers where it's supposed to be on the guitar neck. I said, it's just like hockey, right? You've got to practice that pass 1,000 times in practice to make that pass when it counts, right? Just like when I'm practicing guitar, I got to practice 1,000 times. So when I play in front of people, on a campfire or whatever, right? It's not like I'm playing local gigs or anything. But anyway, if I'm doing a sing along or something, to make sure that I don't screw it up, I got to practice it a lot. and ask my daughter. She's really sick of some songs that I sing over and over and over and over again. But anyway, I have now probably I think I have 13 guitars, something like that. It's become somewhat of an obsession, one that's probably not very healthy. But it's fun. It's the cool thing about playing guitar is they're really, I mean, you can certainly buy extremely expensive guitars. I have chosen not to go that route. Not that I don't have some very nice ones, but you can buy acoustic guitars for, good acoustic guitars for somewhere between $300 and $700. You can get a really nice acoustic guitar, right? So the nice thing about playing guitar is you can have several of them. They all sound different. They all have different tone woods, and to me, it's a challenge, right? It's something that I really enjoy learning and practicing. So why not?
I love it. And, what you just talked about, hitting the same chord 1,000 times, it's the same thing as your presentation. When you're making a marketing presentation or a search presentation, you got to do it over and over and over again to master it. What's the one thing you really are excited about that has absolutely nothing to do with your business life?
Honestly, I'm looking forward very much to, well, we're going to be traveling here shortly. As you know, we're going to Tampa for MRI, and at least I hope you're going in January. I set really short-term goals. I have some long ones for sure, but really I'm looking forward to traveling this winter, getting out of Minnesota and getting to Florida. I really, really like Florida, and so does my wife. So the two of us have been looking at purchasing our vacation home there at some point. Unfortunately, real estate has gone sky high in Florida, but that's outside of work. That's something that we are really enjoying, discovering the coastal communities. It's so different. I grew up in Fargo, North Dakota. I lived in Grand Forks for a while. I lived in Omaha, Nebraska. Now I live in Elk River, Minnesota, or Minneapolis, and I've been landlocked my entire life. So and we've always been on a lake though the whole time. So we love water, but we have wanted to explore the ocean and the coastal regions for a very, very long time. And every time we go to Florida, we love it. So that's something that we go down 2-3 times a year. Every time we see something different. We've been to Key West. We've been to Southwest Florida. We haven't spent as much time on the east side, but we've been to Daytona Beach. I'm really looking forward to that next piece, and as part of that, we get to travel down there and see areas that we haven't seen before. We're like, oh, this area is really cool, or that area is not for us. But just seeing the different parts of Florida has been really fun for a kid that grew up in Fargo and was landlocked his entire life.
I can't imagine spending most of my life in North Dakota or Minnesota. They're great people. The one thing, and I swear I say this to everybody, the people on the coast live life to impress each other. The people in the Midwest live life for a quality of life. And that's what I took away from North Dakota. The people truly, truly loved life.
Yeah. Grand Forks is a special place. I'm only laughing because the wind was so brutal. It's so flat and it's so cold. But I tell you what, the University of North Dakota is a fantastic university with a fantastic hockey team, and I love watching that team. To this day, we stream as many games as we possibly can. We've seen already 3 this season, and my wife graduated from University of North Dakota. So, and if you'll remember, I don't know if when you were there, was the Ralph there, the hockey arena?
Yes. Okay.
So that is an unbelievable facility. It's a tribute to the sport and game of hockey. So anyway, going there is just amazing. We actually got a tour from a kid from Elk River named Matt Kierstead. Gave Eli a tour. He was playing for them at the time. Gave us a tour downstairs, upstairs. It was unbelievable. But anyway, Grand Forks, yes, extremely cold. And being landlocked and growing up in Fargo where the wind always blows, it just makes you a little bit tougher.
Have you considered moving your office to Florida?
No, not really, because My son's 14 years old, and like I'd mentioned, he is in the hockey program here. He plays with fantastic coaches, fantastic kids, and the school systems is really good here in Sherburne County. And so I think we're going to end up staying. In fact, I know we're going to end up staying here at least until he graduates. Also, I have an employee here. I'm sure he doesn't. I mean, he'd work remote too, but um, yeah, it's just not in the cards right now. Right now, we'll go to Florida for vacation and live in Minnesota. Good question, though, Vince.
I'm a hockey fan. I literally have a 1980s hockey autographed jersey by the entire team up on my wall.
Team USA.
Yep, I've got a hockey stick that was signed by Team USA for the 1980 team.
Nice.
There is a passion for hockey in my life, but the last time I put on a set of skates, my shoe size was 4.5. And so the world has changed since then.
Yeah, quick story about that. So when my son first started learning to skate, I somehow convinced our association to invest $1,000 in a hockey rink, 50 by 100. We tore it down. It was in Forest Lake, Minnesota. We went there, tore it down. It has big 6x6 posts, real boards, the whole 9 yards. We tore it down. We brought it into our development. We absolutely had the best possible place for it. Was in this bowled out area in a park that wasn't being utilized for anything. So we built a hockey rink there. So now we have a 50 by 100 hockey rink that's right across the street from our house that my son and other kids in our neighborhood can utilize. And we've had that up. It's been 8 years now. So I'm out there 9:00 at night when it's freezing cold, putting water on the rink. You got to snow blow the rink. You got to resurface the rink. So yeah, there's a lot of time that is spent in that activity during the winter. That's why we don't go anywhere.
Boy, I totally understand that. I really do.
You got to be a little crazy to enjoy that sport, I tell you. Seriously, why couldn't he like basketball? That's so much easier.
I don't know. There's a lot of speed in hockey. You got to stay on your game. And if you're just a spectator, boy, I tell you what, you got to be alert because the puck's moving fast.
That's right. It's a fast game. And you don't know that. You don't realize how fast it is, Vince, and you can appreciate this until you've played it. And you feel like you're playing fast, and then you go watch it on tape, and you're like, oh my gosh. I was so slow. The whole game was so slow compared to like
an interesting story one time, just real short comment actually, is how would you like to have a job where every time you made a mistake, a big siren goes off and a big light starts shining all over? The life of a hockey goalie.
Yeah, no doubt, right? Yep. And you'll see them skate off. They skate to the corner and then they come back. I swear that's to regain their sanity.
Yeah, exactly.
They're competitive too, right? They don't want to let that goal go in. And then you got people that are calling them Civ and yeah. I'm glad I'm not a hockey parent or a goalie parent. That would be the next level of nervousness.
Exactly. So what's a question that you might have for me, Al?
Well, I would love to know your story. We've heard all about my story. I would like to know more about what's made you successful. What's been the key ingredient for your business? Has it been persistence, which is, by the way, I asked a very successful businessman here in Minnesota. I said, what was the one key to your success? And he used one word, persistence. So I'm curious if that's yours or if it's something else.
I would have to say passion. I have this distinct passion to win. I raced motorcycles as a hobby, raced for 58 years. It was a individual sport. If you won, it was your fault. If you lost, it was your fault. And I was blessed to have somebody that built motorcycles for me that never broke down. So it literally was on my shoulders. Transferring that into business, I was blessed to have an owner that trained me the MRI way, literally ABC, the MRI way, was disciplined to it. It's the only way that I knew. And just loving this business as a gift, from the standpoint of, I think it was Jeff Heath that owned an office back east. And he says, can you imagine how many millionaires that Alan Schoenberg created by creating this business?
Yeah.
Money was never an object for me. It was literally finding the right candidate and truly leaving it up to them to make the decision, because the candidate makes a decision, the hiring authority makes a decision, I don't. And if it wasn't the right fit, got to make it happen.
Yeah, I think you actually bring up a really good point, Vince. And I'm on the exact same page you are. I have never, ever had to talk a candidate, or would want to, or would even consider talking a candidate into a position. It either makes sense, right? It either makes sense personally and financially for them, and it makes sense for the business, and there's that marriage. There is no sense trying to squeeze a round peg into a square hole. And if you do, it will just come back to bite you every single time. So I agree 100% with you. I like that part of our work. The art, if you want to call it the art of the deal, for us is really asking the right questions and qualifying each party to the best of our ability, right? So that when those two parties come together, it's almost natural for them to get together and to work together. I agree with you.
What I practice, and I didn't invent this, I learned it from somebody else, gosh, clear back in the 80s. And it was, if there's any hesitation in a candidate or a hiring authority, my job is to convince them not to move forward.
Sure.
Because what I've learned from that is they will either accept that lead or they will fight for it. And if they fight for it, then they want it. But it's not on me. So
yeah, the hardest part I've had is,
Al, I really appreciate that. I feel like I could talk to you for hours. I really do. And I really appreciate the time and really opening up your heart and so forth to this. If there's ever anything I can do, please give me a call. I'd be glad to help you in any possible way. But it sounds like you got just the world wrapped around your little finger, and go make it happen. Keep pursuing that dream. And if it's narrowing down that niche, narrow down that niche, because you can always broaden it back up again.
Well, I definitely do not have the world wrapped around my finger. I can promise you that. But I will keep slugging away until I can slug no more. But thanks for the time, Vince. Really appreciate it. Shots on goal. Exactly. Shots on net. Yeah, no doubt, right? But really appreciate the time as well. Thank you for having me, Vince. And Ashley, thank you for setting this up today. I appreciate it.